Anyone who was not inside does not understand what we are dealing with. You cannot know where the deadly surprise will come from. It is the testimony of an Israeli officer who entered the Gaza tunnels and fought inside them. And the Israeli soldiers' recent talk and their terrifying stories contain many details about the tactics of luring them into the tunnels that they discover, or so they think. Soon they will enter, and then it will be. Their only hope is for them to come out alive to see some of the horror of what they saw and to elaborate on the tactics of distinguishing between the tunnels. The mind of anyone who believes that this complex network is similar and that every tunnel is a tunnel like any other. And this is what the Israelis have come to know. Well, because the tunnels of spiders, of course, are not like rabbits. Well, it seems that the matter has begun. If you are confused, our dear follower, do not worry. Later in this visual work, we will explain to you in detail the difference between the two types of tunnels, and we will specify the Israeli tactics to find and blow them up. In return, we will introduce you to the Palestinians' adjured tactics to lure Israeli soldiers into the rabbit tunnels, keeping their eyes away from the spider tunnels, and how they force the Israeli soldiers to enter these tunnels. Tunnels, even if they think it is a trick, because finding a single tunnel and combing it, blowing it up, or even flooding it is a victory that the Israelis will talk about a lot at a time when these tunnels or the Gaza metro are still the main axis that hinders Israeli WFTM's movement and prevents it from controlling the strip. And we have the largest tunnel. It was discovered by Israel and Gaza, where pictures and videos of this tunnel invaded the media and communication, not only because it extends approximately 4 kilometers and is 50 meters deep, but also because it is equipped with everything from electricity to ventilation and communication systems, and is very close to one of the main crossing points between Israel and Gaza, which is the Perez crossing, which it was a major site that was attacked by armed Palestinian factions on the 7th of October before they crossed towards Israel from there. The size and area of this tunnel, the possibility of driving a car inside it, and the presence of a temporary railway line inside it, although Israel wanted, behind presenting this discovery, a recording from inside Gaza. But reading it on the other side of the issue, it shows the ability of the Palestinian factions to build large networks of tunnels, which may make their story believable that the length of the tunnels under Gaza reaches 500 km or 311 miles. If this number is accurate, we can imagine the shape of this network, which will be slightly less than half the length of the subway system in New York City. Now, as we promised you earlier in this video, we will talk about the different types of tunnels under Gaza, especially what has become known as the spider and rabbit tunnels. As for the rabbit tunnels, they have an entrance and no exit. Simply put, they are fake tunnels to deceive the Israeli army once it enters. To it, Israeli soldiers will find themselves stuck underground, and suddenly, the previously booby-trapped tunnel explodes, burying everyone inside it. This is, of course, what has happened repeatedly since the start of the ground invasion of Gaza, about 2 months ago, which makes these tunnels the main reason for the deaths of Israeli soldiers, and at the entrances to these tunnels, Palestinian factions are operating deception to lure Israeli soldiers. According to what the Israeli army announced, Palestinian fighters place blood backpacks and some civilian objects at the entrances to the tunnels of rabbits that suggest the presence of hostages inside the tunnel, in an attempt to entice the soldiers to enter the tunnel in the hope of finding some prize. Israeli detainees, even deceiving the Palestinian factions. Of course, this is according to the Israeli army has gone so far as to place hidden speakers near the tunnel opening that emit the sounds of crying or conversations in Hebrew to convince the soldiers that they are the voices of detainees. Now let us talk about the second type of tunnels known as the spider web, which are tunnels whose paths are difficult to determine and their entrances and exits determined. The Palestinian factions work to camouflage them and make their openings hidden. The color of the ground, of course, because they are the real tunnels that the Palestinian factions rely on to move underground. One of the released Israeli hostages even described them as spider tunnels, with estimates confirming that they extend hundreds of kilometers, and some of them reach a depth of 80 meters. According to many intelligence reports, the types of spider tunnels are many and different and related. Some of them are under the sandy coastal strip, which has an area of dangers 360 square kilometers and includes so-called attack, smuggling, storage, and operations burrows. What makes the Gaza tunnels different from the tunnels of Al-Qaeda in the mountains of Afghanistan or the Viet Cong movement in the forest of Southeast Asia is that the Palestinian factions built them in a very complex way, under one of the most densely populated areas on Earth, with nearly 2 million people living in an area of 8 square miles that make up Gaza City. Spider tunnels are used to transport people and goods and store missiles and ammunition caches. It also includes the command and control centers of the Palestinian factions. The network includes narrow tunnels sufficient for one person, in addition to larger sections that include rooms, offices, and medical facilities designed to take shelter underground during bombing. Some of the tunnels are ventilated and reinforced with the people benches, concrete walls. The tunnels also include means of communication and infrastructure, operate on solar energy and fuel, all of which are far from the eyes of Israeli army aircraft and reconnaissance drones. From here, we can move to the Israeli army's tactics, and finding and destroying these tunnels can be started from the latest statements of Israeli army spokesman Avichai Adre, who announced that Israeli forces were able, at the beginning of the ground operation in the Gaza Strip, to find about 500 tunnel openings and tunnel paths. Here it must be remembered that this does not mean that Israel was able to enter and destroy it. And now, our dear follower, you know that not all tunnels are the same, and the Israeli army must know before it enters to comb or destroy it from the outside. Is this a rabbit tunnel for camouflage, or a spider tunnel, perhaps inside it? Or there are tens of Palestinian fighters, and despite the fact that there is no guaranteed solution to deal with the threat of the tunnels and the presence of an Israeli Iron Dome for the tunnels, but Israel is harnessing all of the latest world technologies at its disposal to detect and destroy Gaza's tunnels, including smart underground systems characterized by advanced sensors that can monitor vibrations coming from the tunnels and determine their location, and robots that carry cameras to draw a map of the tunnels. And these robots do not only helps in revealing the location of the tunnels, but rather gives Israel at least a partial view of those in the tunnels and where they are. Israel also uses drones that fly day and night to detect any movement coming from underground, in addition to collecting intelligence information on a daily basis regarding the tunnel network, whether through interrogating captured Hamas fighters or even interrogating released Israeli hostages. In the end, Israel collects the parts that give its army a better picture of the underground city. Of course, the danger does not end with the discovery of the tunnels, because robots do not always succeed in revealing who's in the tunnels, and therefore the Israeli group leader must make the decision, entering the tunnel to search or destroy it from the outside. And if the decision is made to destroy it, the means are also numerous. Usually, Israeli soldiers have two options when finding tunnels: either to make them temporarily unusable or to destroy them. Accordingly, appropriate weapon is used for the desired goal, on top of the tactics of destroying the tunnels. Bombardment with American Jada missiles that penetrate the fortifications and through container trucks filled with gel-like explosive liquids. that are pumped into them through oozes inside the tunnel. The problem here is that it takes tons of liquid to destroy several meters of tunnels. Israel also uses portable fortification, piercing munitions, and thermobaric weapons that contain a mixture that flies and ignites, leading to an explosion designed to bypass barriers and float into structures. Usually, bombing underground tunnels is the most effective way to eliminate them, but such strikes can kill those inside them. Here, of course, Israel fears for the hostages, not for the Palestinian fighters, or for fear that Gazatim civilians will be affected. They are killed in all circumstances from the air. The Israeli army has recently begun choosing methods to flood the vast tunnels of the Palestinian factions under the Gaza Strip with seawater. In the end, what remains clear is that technology alone will not be sufficient to stop the death that threatens the Israeli army and is coming from under the ground. Is a